Hello everyone, this is Steve with SkinnyPost.com, and I'm joined today with Nolan Harrison. Nolan is a former NFL veteran, spent 10 years in the league. He played with the Los Angeles and Oakland Raiders, also played with the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Washington Redskins. He's currently a member of the NFL Players Association Steering Committee, and we're going to talk today a little bit about things such as the rules, on and off the field, and maybe a little bit about the labor agreement. How are you doing today, Nolan? Thanks for joining us.
I'm doing great, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Great. Basically, let's start off and talk a little bit about the NFL Steering Committee. What do you do exactly, and what is your role with the Players Association?
Okay. The NFL Players Association's Steering Committee on the retired player side we're a group of individuals that were elected by the body as a whole to govern the retired players. Putting together, helping the director of the Retired Players Association, who is Andre Collins, put together programs and help develop ideas and things for transition, things for health, things for re-education, all those kind of things we talk about over the course of the year, and then it culminates in our convention that we have at the end of the year, and we present information and new ideas and new proposals to the guys. Also, we have the ability to talk to the current guys and get input from them and give them our input in terms of CBA negotiations, retired players' issues, and help the current guys in their transition while they're still playing. Talking about we have guys that are in finance like myself. We have guys who are attorneys. We have guys that are engineers that might be in a field that the guys are looking to move to when they leave the game. So we're a resource for them in that respect also.
One of the things that I notice is becoming a much bigger topic now is obviously, and it should be, is player safety. A lot of the older players from yesteryear, the rules were such as they were, people were getting hurt, getting injured, playing through things such as concussions, and the rules have kind of changed to, help the players down the road, so to speak. Talk to me a little bit about exactly what you share with players that are in the league now, about their future down the road and their health and things that they need to do to make sure that their health is good later in their years.
Well, one of the things that I've always been a proponent of, especially since I was on the executive committee as a current player, was player safety. And, during our time, we were the first ones to get a redesign of the helmets. And I had a 4-year campaign with trying to get shot blocking banned because, as you know, and it still happens now, but it was pretty prevalent in the 90s. It was a kind of a long-standing rule of intimidation by certain teams that would dive on the back and the side of defensive linemen's legs, and whether you put them out of the game or put them out for the season, and some of them were career-ending. And it was just ridiculous to me that there are so many rules being put in place to protect the quarterbacks and the receivers, but none to protect the defensive linemen and the linebackers. And so I did that crusade and ended up getting the rule changed finally after 4 years and getting in front of the competition committee with then Commissioner Paul Tagliabue, the head of officiating, Harold Henderson, Rich McKay, Dennis Green, who else was on there? Bill Cowher, and of course Gene Upshaw and Trace Armstrong was our president. Presented the case like an attorney, and we finally got it changed over. And not only did shot blocking become a finable offense, a 15-yard offense, but it was a finable offense also. So player safety has been a big issue with me. Do I think the NFL has gone a little bit too far with some of this stuff? It really depends. I come from an era where you could still hit somebody and not get kicked out of the game. Guys were knocking people out, which were legal hits back then, which would get you a 15-yard penalty, and now probably a fine from the league. So we played in a different era. Do I think it helps the game and enhances the guy's ability to play longer? Yes. Do I think that sometimes, like if you brush a quarterback's leg now, it's a 15-yard penalty? Does it go a little bit too overboard? Yes. We've got to find a happy medium in this thing, and there's got to be consistency. You look at this last weekend at the games. Brett Favre got creamed. He had guys diving on the back of his legs, hitting them late. I watched thousands of games, over the last couple of years where that would be tolerated, the hits that were going on. So there's got to be some consistency there too. If you're going to put a rule in place, make it consistent all across the board. Not that I'm indicting anyone, but I'm not going to be able to get fined for it either because I'm not a current player anymore.
One of the questions that I I constantly hear from people is the question about a player who launches himself and leads with his helmet. They say that is obviously is a penalty and probably a fine. Exactly how does a player not lead with his head if he is coming in head first? Is he supposed to turn away and just use shoulders? I mean, is the technique of tackling, has it gotten away from what it used to be or what you were taught in Pop Warner or through high school, or people and players today not using the techniques that they should?
It has. It's changed. When I grew up, you were supposed to face up, put your face into the numbers, lift, drive, and plant. So you were taught to lead with your head first. That has to change, and not only for this neck and the spine for guys, but as you know now with the concussions. There are ways to be able to change your trajectory, change it to where you're getting more of a shoulder and elbow and forearm into it instead of using your head. Now, whether or not you're now turning your shoulder, your forearm, and your elbow into a weapon instead of your head, that's a whole other issue that's going to have to be addressed later on. But as you've seen, some of the best players, Ray Lewis, they've learned to be able to just turn slightly to where you're not leading with that head first, but you still have eye contact with your target, so you don't lose that target. And they're putting the elbow, shoulder into it, and they're really giving them some good hits. So the hitting power hasn't gone away, but you're taking out the possibility of guys getting concussions from it. At least the person who's doing the hitting, getting a concussion or hurting his neck or his back.
Now, we also hear more and more watching games is there's, the rule of hitting a wide receiver who is defenseless. What exactly, if you have one, don't you have to have the other? I mean, is a receiver ever defending himself? I mean, what exactly is a defenseless receiver? They're always concentrating on the ball. So does he have to have possession of the ball before he can be creamed? Or is it, just because he's laid out trying to get a ball over his head, or maybe he's leaped up in the air to get one that's a little high? What exactly is the line there between defenseless and non-defenseless?
And that's a hard question. It just, in my view, in my book, a player becomes defenseless when there's no possible way that he can make a play. So if the ball is so far over the person's head, but the DB just continues to launch himself into the receiver, at that point, the receiver knows he can't catch the ball. He relaxes himself. He's coming down, or he's still just maybe breaking his route and slowing down because he knows there's no way he can catch the ball. That's where serious injuries can occur if the defensive back is disregarding the rule and disregarding his opponent's safety and knocks him out. I mean, that's where it's where the rule is supposed to be in play to protect the player. But what we've seen guys going up for footballs and it just being barely out of the hands and a defensive back who is taught to knock the person out and make sure that there's no possible way for that tip drill like the first game of the season with the Broncos or any other play. You've seen, Donald Driver making that, or was it Freeman? One of the guys for the Green Bay Packers made a phenomenal catch. It was on the ground. He ended up getting up and making the play. So whose fault is that? Well, that's going to come down to the defensive back. He's the one that was there that didn't lay the guy out and make sure there was no possible way he could make that free catch. So there's that line right there. I just think that there needs to be more education on what is defenseless and what's not. In my book, if the ball is too high, the guy's slowing down, that's when there's honor in the game. An honorable person, an honorable warrior is not going to knock somebody out when there's no possible way for them to make a play. That makes no sense at all. But if he's jumping and I'm jumping and that ball is in my view too, I'm knocking him out. And, that's the way I think it should be, because that's how football should be played.